you have to have a plan as to what your ultimate goal is, as far as with the business, as far as with retirement at some point in time. At some point in time, as we know, you're either going to sell the business or the business is going to outlive you. So
Right.
when I say outlive you, you either sell it or you're going to die in the business. So at some point in time, that business is not going to be your business, is what I'm saying. And so you got to have a plan. Whatever that plan is, some people look at Warren Buffett. He's in his 90s. He's still running his business. At the same time, some people don't want to be running their business when they're 90 years old, but he enjoys what he's doing. So if you're one of those that really enjoy your business, you may never retire. But at the same time, you still need a plan in place.
You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Question: what would happen to your business or family if something were to happen to you today? Have you really thought about your long-term plan? Have you thought about retirement? And I know that as an entrepreneur or a small business owner, your whole focus is likely on grinding and running the business, and you feel like you don't have enough funds or time to put towards retirement. And you're honestly just trying to make it through the day. Trust me, I get it. Or you know that you should be thinking about your long-term plan, but it all seems so overwhelming and you don't even know where to start when it comes to thinking about retirement. Well, today, we've got you covered. Whether you're a small and mighty team of one or a few, this episode is for you. On today's episode, Andrei Hall is joining us to share how to plan for retirement as an entrepreneur and small business owner. Andrei Hall is the president of Hall Wealth Management Group. He has over 19 years of experience in wealth management for retirees, high-level executives, celebrities, and business owners. So during this episode, you're going to learn the importance of retirement planning and understanding the different retirement accounts. You're going to also learn what role a financial advisor or planner plays in the retirement process and the stages of retirement planning and the recommended plans during those stages. And we're also going to talk about how to decide when and how much you need to retire. So let's dive in. Andrei, welcome to the Black to Business Podcast. So excited to have you here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So before we dive in, let's get a little bit about who you are. So if you could tell my audience who you are, what is it that you do in your business, and how did you get where you are today?
Who I am is Andrei Hall. I have a wealth management firm in Irvine, California. I started off in the corporate world. I was a vice president at a couple of companies prior to doing what I'm doing now. And basically how I got here, I was at a Fortune 100 company as a vice president initially. And I had several folks that unfortunately it happens that passed away. It was either the person working for me or their spouse. And what happened at that time, being the head of the organization that I had, somehow or other, they would always end up coming to me asking for help. And when they would come in and ask for that help, I had to start preparing myself to give that help. So I started reading up, learning, researching, and I was able to help a number of people, really more than several, through the years. And my son was 19 now. When he was just born, at that time, I was with another company as a vice president and corporate officer. And I decided that I didn't want to travel like I've been traveling. I spent as many as 250 days a year in hotel rooms. And I said I didn't want to do that anymore. So I looked around and decided this is something I enjoy, something that is helping someone, And so I decided this was going to be my profession.
Love, love, love that. And I'm so excited to have you here today because we're going to talk about something that we don't get to talk about a lot on the show, but also within the Black community. And that is about planning for retirement as an entrepreneur and a small business owner. So I know that's something that you do really, really well, is helping people plan for retirement and just long-term planning. So first I like to give my audience the basics. So understanding retirement and the importance of long-term thinking. So what would you say retirement planning is and why it's important? Because of course, this is the Black to Business podcast for entrepreneurs and small business owners to prioritize.
Well, unfortunately, when you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, your whole focus is running the business. You don't have time to do anything else. You're not thinking about yourself. That happens a lot in corporate America with executives also, but definitely with more so with small business owners. At least with corporate America, they got retirement programs in place. With
Right.
small business owners, most small business owners don't have those retirement plans in place. And their business, they're hoping at some point to sell their business, and that is their retirement program that they think is going to take care of them later on. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, depending on how they plan. And the issue is when you're an entrepreneur and you're looking at some point in time to sell your business for your retirement, you have to make sure that you start that process 5 to 10 years in advance. If you don't start that process 5 to 10 years in advance, you're not going to maximize the selling price that you get for your business.
Got it. And now when we think about, like you said, there's something like when you're in corporate America, they have these programs in place. Rather in entrepreneurship, it's kind of like you got to figure this out on your own or get somebody to help you figure it out. So speaking of that, is this something that people can do on their own, or do they have to look for a professional to do this for them?
Well, to set up small business retirement programs, you do need a professional. It's not something that you really can go out there and do on your own, at least not effectively. I haven't seen it done effectively ever. But it's something that can be done. But the difference is when you're in a corporate job, they have matching and things of that nature and accelerated restricted stock and a lot of other programs, especially for the executives. You don't have those kind of matching programs when you're a small business owner. You can do some unique things as a small business owner that a corporate executive cannot do, but at the same time, you have to put it in place and pay attention to it and take the time to understand what your goals and objectives ultimately are and how they're going to affect the employees that you have.
And we're definitely going to dive into what all this looks like, because I know people are wondering, like, okay, what does this look like? But before we do, you said that this is something that people shouldn't do on their own or they can't do it effectively. So who is the person that they go to help them do that? Like a financial advisor?
Absolutely. You have to go to someone who that's their business. And to set up 401ks, small business 401ks, or deferred compensation programs to keep key employees, even when you're a small business owner, you got to have certain programs to keep those key employees, or a defined benefit plan whereby a small business owner can put as much as a couple of $100,000 a year into. So those kind of programs you can do as a small business owner that you can't do when you're in the corporate world, but at the same time, they have their benefits and you have to figure out what are your benefits are going to be.
And so this financial advisor is the one that's helping them, figure out, well, us, because I'm an entrepreneur myself, figure out those benefits, because it's like who gets involved. So you would say go to a financial advisor and their role is to help you pick those benefits that work for you.
Well, yes, but it's really all about planning. You have to have a plan. Okay. Failure to plan is planning to fail.
Right.
So you have to have a plan as to what your ultimate goal is,
Mm-hmm.
as far as with the business, as far as with retirement at some point in time. At some point in time, as we know, you're either going to sell the business or the business is going to outlive you. So
Right.
when I say outlive you, you either sell it or you're going to die in the business. So at some point in time, that business is not going to be your business, is what I'm saying. And so you got to have a plan. Whatever that plan is, some people look at Warren Buffett. He's in his 90s. He's still running his business. At the same time, some people don't want to be running their business when they're 90 years old, but he enjoys what he's doing. So if you're one of those that really enjoy your business, you may never retire. But at the same time, you still need a plan in place because you want, from an estate planning standpoint, from a family planning standpoint, you want to make sure you got things in place that's going to take care of your loved ones at some point in time.
Absolutely agree with that. And okay, so one of the things that you also mentioned before is that when someone is looking to retire, like these are things that you want to make sure that you set up before, like you said, 10 years, 10, 15 years before. The question I think is, it kind of reassured people that it's never too late to start planning for retirement. So would you say that? And then what can make it more difficult if so? The fact that it's probably never too late to actually start, but you should start sooner rather than later.
Well, a couple of things. I want to go back just a little bit in what you just said. When I said 5 to 10 years in advance, that was all about your exit plan for your business.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
I'm like 5 to 10 years we can start planning. Okay.
So if you don't set your objectives, determine the value and the price, and start preserving, protecting, and promoting the value, you're not going to get there or get the maximum price for the business, because a lot of times that small business owner really is the business. So you got to put processes in place, programs in place to ensure the business is a business without you. Because if it's not a business without you, who's going to buy it? So you got to make sure that you have the right programs, processes that business can run when you're on vacation for 6 months.
Right.
Okay. So you have to make sure that you have everything in place so that someone looking to buy the business sees the right kind of financials, sees that it's profitable, and sees that it's not you may have employees, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 employees, but they have to see that is still a business without you being there, if they're going to pay any decent money for
it. Well said. So I want to kind of walk us through the stages like I have here. So I want to talk about like what it looks like. What does retirement look like? Then I want to talk about the decision-making process, and then business after retirement for those who are looking to either sell or looking to, transfer the ownership of the business. So let's start diving into what it actually looks like. So I think it's important to discuss like the different types of retirement accounts. Like when you think about, like you said, like business, corporate, 401k, matching and all of that. But understanding for an entrepreneur, like the different options that they have, what would you say the type of retirement accounts are?
Well, if you have employees, probably you're going to have something very similar. It may not have all the same bells and whistles that a corporate retirement plan has. It'll be a 401k. Okay. And you can design that 401k a number of ways, but you're going to have regular traditional contributions that are pre-taxed. And then you're going to have an after-tax, which is normally a Roth 401k. Then inside of there, you will have another program that some people have and some people don't, including corporations, whereby you can put up to, including your 401k contributions, and if you're over 50, $72,000 a year, or 73,000, I think it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't realize that. They know how much you can put into the 401k, and they are clearly understand that most people just put in the pre-tax. A lot of people don't realize it's much more beneficial, a little painful right now because you're not getting the deduction for it, but you really want to put your money into Roth 401ks, not the traditional 401ks. Then you can set up an after tax that where you can contribute another 40,000 plus and convert that to a Roth IRA at some point in time.
Gotcha. And one of the things I do have here is like that tax deferred versus tax exempt or tax free. Like how does one make sure like they have that right mix of that accounts?
Well, let me say it this way. I'm a firm believer you want to mix at the same time. You want to put as much as you can into the Roth portion, the Roth side, because think of it this way. When you have 100,000 in there, let's say you did it 20 years ago, and that 20 years grew at the same rate, be it in the traditional 401k bucket, the pre-tax bucket versus the Roth bucket, and it's $1 million now. I'm just going on the high end. It's $1 million now. You're going to pay 40% of that between federal and state taxes out of the pre-tax bucket. You didn't get the deduction in the for the 100,000 initially, but you're not paying any more tax because it's grown tax-free and it comes out tax-free. When I didn't go through a lot of different, I went through what's inside of a 401k, but there are a number of accounts, like things like simple 401ks. You have, you can do, a company can set up an IRA program inside of the company also. So there are a number of different type of accounts that you can do. The one that we're, we're most used to seeing, obviously, is the 401k. So I focused on that, but at the same time, there are a number of different other type of accounts, and some, if you're really a small business owner of a couple of people, 2 or 3 people, you might want to really look at a defined benefit plan where you can put hundreds of thousands into that each year, depending on how you set it up and your age.
Okay. Because most people do think, like you kind of said in the beginning, is they have the funds or they're not really focused on it. And of course, when you're in business as an entrepreneur, maybe people are on one team of just one. So they're thinking, okay, I don't have the extra money to put away, but I really want to just speak to encouraging people that there is ways that they can start small. So what would you say to somebody who's like a one-person team, and what could they be able to do?
Well, you can do, if you're a one-person team, you can do what's called a solo 401k that's just for you if you don't have any employees. And it gives you all the same benefits basically as a 401k in the corporate world, except you don't have anybody else matching your contributions, those kind of things. So you don't have that benefit, but it gives you all the other savings benefits that a 401k has. And it's called a solo 401k or an individual 401k. It goes by a couple of different names, but they're all the same. And you can have a regular traditional contribution bucket, and you can have your Roth, and you can have your after tax, whereby you can expand what you're putting away up to, as I indicated, that $70,000, $73,000 if you're over 50. If you're under 50, it's a little less.
And then, so how would, okay, you're one person now, but then of course people are thinking about growing. So what does that process look like once you begin to grow and add on to your team? Maybe it's, you're basically transitioning. So what does that transition process look like for most entrepreneurs when they add on to their team?
Well, what they would have to do then is switch to a regular 401k once you add in employees. So you would have to switch to the traditional type of 401k that the employees can join also. You can't have a solo 401k when you have employees.
Good to note. Got it. Any other things that you think my audience who are business owners, small business owners, should know about the different types of retirement accounts?
As far as the different type of retirement accounts, I don't think that's really the biggest issue for small business owners. I mean, retirement accounts, any financial advisor can set up different type of retirement accounts. You do have to clearly understand what that business owner's objectives are for himself or herself. And that's number one. And how long, what is the horizon time? But more importantly, for small business owners, they have to lay out what's their game plan. What's their game plan for their business? What's their game plan for retirement? It's not just retirement accounts. You got a business as a small business owner, and you got to figure out, is it something that is going to also not just give you income now, but give you income when it comes time for retirement. And that is what the planning that a small business owner that very few go through needs to be doing, because you need to do that well in advance of retirement. I mean, it's like when you're getting ready to sell your house. What do? You spruce it up. Okay. You got to spruce up that business. If you don't spruce up that business, if you don't go through and clearly understand what it is how to convert that business value to cash, selling to an outside third party or selling to key employees, insiders, or transferring to your children and having them pay you income based on the program that you set up, setting up an ESOP for all employees so that when it comes time for you to retire, that ESOP provides the funds and the enablement for the employees to buy out the business from you. So, and also you got to have a contingency planning for the business, a buy-sell agreement. You got to make sure that the exit goals that business owner has really matches up with his or her overall estate plan.
Got it. And so it makes me think about, well, my next point is on that decision-making process. And of course, you having that plan, deciding what your plan will look like. So would you say that when it comes to deciding when the time is right, would you say that that's the first thing that people should think about, and then have their business, also making sure that their business is in a good place to go along with this plan? So would you say it's first to decide when is the time right for me to retire? In conjunction with that, making sure that your business can support that decision.
Well, first of all, at some point, you're either going to retire or work in the business till you pass away. So if you're going, at some point, if you say, hey, I know I'm going to not work in this business forever. Then you need to start at least thinking about because anyone coming in to buy that business, one of the first things they're going to do, they're going to walk around, they're going to try and see what the culture of the business is. They're going to want to see the financials. They want to see what is the business strategy, what is the key differentiators that business have in the industry they're in over their competitors. They're going to want to see all of those things to determine if it's worth what that business owner is asking for. So you want to always have that in mind. Most of us don't. I'm not going to lie. Most of us don't. But you want to always have that in mind, because as you're developing the business, it makes it easier. It's like if you lived in a house for 30 years and never did anything to that house, you're going to have to do a lot to that house when it's time to sell normally, if you're going to maximize the value. Can you sell it? Yes, when it's a house. But quite frankly, a lot of times when it's a business, no one is going to buy it because no one wants to come in unless there's some unique competitive advantage that business has. It's going to want to come in and do all the work that hasn't been done for 30 years.
So definitely want to be, we trying to get it right on the Blacks in Business podcast, encourage our audience to get it right. So like Andrei said, these are the things that a lot of people, because that was going to be my question, some of the common mistakes that you see people making. And a lot of people are not thinking about this, but we should be thinking about this. So.
Absolutely.
And so one of the things you also mentioned is selling. So what about those people who want to maybe transfer the ownership?
Well, there's the question becomes whether it's employees or when you say transfer or family.
Yes.
And normally it's family. Okay. Probably 10% maybe or so, 15% may be transferred to employees. Sometimes it's just a couple of key employees. And you can have a buy-sell agreement set up with insurance, or sometimes it's set up through an ESOP with all the employees in the firm, and they become employee owners in the end. And if it's family, quite frankly, it's usually more complicated because all the statistics say that most family transfers do not last that long after that owner leaves the business. But the reason is a lot of times, just like I was talking about when you're selling to a third party, that owner was the business and they didn't set up the processes or have the right programs in place, the right business strategies in place, whereby that was a business without them there doing it day in and day out. They knew it like the back of their hand, but at the same time, when a son or daughter comes into the business, they don't know it like the back of their hand. They don't have they're not doing those 10 or 15 different jobs. When I say that, 10 or 15 different type of things, you can call them jobs or whatever, inside of that company. And they don't have those, I want to say not natural that business owner had, but because they grew up with the business, they knew all the facets of the operation. You gotta set the processes in place if those things that were getting done by you without you even thinking about it can still get done.
And so with that, would you say, because we had some guests on here and they were saying about their sons and daughters working within their business. So would you say, like in your experience, it works? I know you said it's not a high success rate, but maybe if the people or the children or family members are working within the business or just having those processes in place, they never worked in the business, but they come in and they take over.
Yes and no. It depends on the business owner, because a lot of times the kids are in there, but they're pigeonholed. They're just like an employee. They are not really learning the business. That business owner has them working there, but they're not learning and doing the things that business owner has been doing all their lives, really. And I say all their lives, all the lives, the life of the business.
Right.
So they're not there running the business. It'd be different if that business owner say, okay, hey, I'm still here, but I'm not here. So I'm going to be taking vacation on. You're running the business, and they're coaching and counseling that child. But a lot of times it's, they got them doing sales job, or they got them doing something if it's manufacturing, looking on the manufacturing line. But a manufacturer is nothing without sales. Sales is nothing without a good if it's a manufacturing business, a good manufacturing line. I say that in that way just as an example, in that person, that business owner knows it all.
Right.
If they don't develop their children to really understand all facets of it, but really give them the responsibility before they totally check out of the business or pass away, it's very difficult for that business to continue being as successful as it was before.
That makes sense. And so, Andre, one of the things you also spoke about is that a lot of us don't plan properly. And so those are some of the mistakes that you see people make in terms of not having the systems and things in place. Are there any other common mistakes that you see entrepreneurs make when it comes to retirement planning?
Well, I'm harping on it, but the biggest mistake I see entrepreneurs making is not planning for it. And it all comes back. I remember when I first started in the corporate world, and they had this thing, and on everything we did was failure to plan is planning to fail. Now, you can do bad planning, but at least you're planning. And what business owners are not comprehending is what are all the things that need to be put in place leading up to that sale. Okay. When you think about, again, going back to selling a house, there's a lot of things, if you're going to get maximum value, you start doing and putting in place leading up to that sale. And that's what business owners, unfortunately, because they're so involved in the day-to-day management of the company, all of a sudden it's 20 years later and they've never planned. And that's really, it hits them. I mean, we all, I can remember telling my 19-year-old son, he didn't believe me. He didn't listen to me. I said, I remember the first time I took him to school when he was in the 9th grade, the first day of school in the 9th grade. I said, son, before you know it, these 4 years of high school are going to be gone. Right. You got to start thinking about what you're going to. You didn't think about it. You didn't do the things I tried to get him to do. As dads, a lot of times we don't know too much. And it flew by. He can't believe how quickly it flew by. And it's the same thing with business owners. It's the same thing, quite frankly, with life. Where did all the years go to? I mean, before we know it, it's our kids are grown up, we're older. All of those things happen before we know it. And so that exit planning has to start, you need to, every year you should be planning for the next year coming up. You should do even if you're a solo business owner by yourself, you should take a couple of days at the end of each year to plan for the next year. And part of that planning is, if something were to happen to me right now, what would happen to my business? What would happen to my family? Okay. Along with that is, okay, what are the things I can do to make this business more sellable when that time comes? And if you think that way, you'll get a lot more for your business than what most small business owners get for their business, whether they're an individual, just them, or whether they have 100 employees. The same thing happens.
And when I think about, bringing it home in terms of, one of the things you mentioned is some people like to have a bad plan. Of course, we want to have a good plan. So what would you tell somebody today that has a team of less than 5 employees? Planning for a good plan looks like this. I know and that includes, having those goals, maybe considering how much money you want to have by that time. Like, what would you say a good plan is, and the types of agreements or things that they should have in place?
Well, a good plan is clearly start figuring out who would be the potential buyers of the company. Obviously, it's kind of not too much difficult than that, in that it could be a third party, could be employees, it could be family. Okay. And so that's the first piece. And then the next piece is really, what is it that you want to do? Okay. Do you want to still be involved in the business, but a lot less involved? Do you want to be just totally, once you say you're done, you want to be done and have no involvement? Do you want to do it ease out, or do you want to cut the cord all at once? You have to work through what is it that you feel would be good for you and good for your family. You have to decide if you're going to be charitable. There's a lot of things you got to look at because, quite frankly, when you look at all the things that use the old world name, the Rockefellers, or even the Bill Gates of the world, and all of these people, he donates a lot to charity. But guess what? You can set up charitable programs whereby you eliminate a lot of taxes. You're donating to charity, but that program that you set up pays you for 20 years. And you save a ton in taxes versus taking all the cash at once. So there are a lot of things you got to do, you can do, and should do when you're looking at selling or leaving the company.
Okay. And Andre, what would you say is, how does one decide how much they need to retire?
Okay, well, that really is going through comprehensive financial planning, looking at your goals, objectives, your family makeup, what you want to do in retirement, where you want to live. You have a lot of people in the U.S. that says that, okay, I'm going to move to one of these states that don't have state income taxes. Well, that sounds good, but there are you got to look at everything, and people don't, because there's some states, California New York, the real estate is very, very expensive in those states, in most parts of those states. But at the same time, property taxes, while people think are high, are not as high as they are in a lot of other states. But one of the things, I give this simple example, I'm licensed in about 17 states. I have clients in Louisiana that pay $15,000 for a homeowner's insurance. In California, that same house would be $1,500. $15,000 a year buys you several $100,000 more in house if you weren't paying that wherever you're living. So you really got to look at all the pieces, whereby not just the initial price of where you're going to live, when the things that pop out to you, like the cost of the real estate, but all the upkeep and all the other things that go with living in that state. And I say that to say, because a lot of people have made a lot of bad decisions thinking they were going to lower their cost of living, and didn't lower their cost of living that much, anywhere near where they thought they were. So when it comes to planning for retirement, you got to do a plan. And I come back to that again. You got to do a comprehensive financial plan that says, these are all the things we got to take into consideration, and do it from a holistic standpoint, and really look at all of those variables inside of there, like health insurance, or your personal health and long-term care. A lot of people don't even think about long-term care. My mother, unfortunately, had Alzheimer's for 10 years. And we had to have someone, she would go out and leave the house and not know where she was. okay, when she's out there walking by herself. So obviously we got to the point where we had to have someone around her 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, my brother took it upon himself to be her main caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
But that disrupts someone's life, especially your kids. If they got kids, you don't want them being your caregiver because that's going to destroy or really not be
Strain.
good for their family life,
Mm-hmm.
uh, for their spouse or their kids. So all of those things have to be planned for. A lot of people don't plan for those kinds of things. One of the things we're forced to do, as an example, is to get homeowners insurance when we buy a house because the lender won't give you the loan without having that homeowners insurance.
Right.
How often we need it is not very often, really. Very, very rarely do we need that homeowners insurance or utilize it, but you got to have it. There's a 70% chance to a couple, one of them will need long-term care if they're 65 or over. A 70% chance, this government statistics can get that word out. 70% chance that you're going to need long-term care. One of you will need it at some point in your lives. So it's much more likely we're all going to need help at some point.
Right.
I remember a sign that was up a year or two ago saying the first person that's going to live to be 100 is a billboard sign. That's going to live to be 150 has just been born. So we're all living a lot longer now. Things like Social Security, when it was first started, people basically retired at 65 or so, and 3 years later died. Most spouses now, at least one of them, are going to live to be 90.
Well, also, people talk about the benefits that some people have now may not be here years from now. So, making sure that you have those plans in place in case we don't have certain benefits.
Well, let me say it this way. Every country has the same issues. And quite frankly, the U.S. probably has fewer benefits for retirees than most countries do. That's number one. Number two, we continue to kick the can down the road when it comes to quote unquote fixing Social Security. I think at some point in time, we're going to have to do more tweaks to it, but it's going to be there. It has to be there. We can't have a society that don't have those programs in place.
Reassuring. Got it. And so this has been amazing. And one of the things, of course, that we always want to do on the Black to Business podcast is really encourage people to have a good plan. And you stress that a lot, and it goes to what we also teach on the Black to Business podcast. And one of the things you also said in the beginning is, to maximize, to do your best in retirement planning, you are going to need assistance. So I want to talk about some of the problems that you're solving and how you're helping people and business owners with those retirement needs at Hall Wealth Management. So can you talk about what you offer in your process of working with, of course, this is the Black to Business podcast, so we have entrepreneurs and business owners. So what does that look like working with you?
Basically, first of all, who I work with are small business owners, small and medium-sized business owners, corporate executives, and retirees. Those are the three areas that I focus on. That's number one. Number two, the resources and programs that I have, as an example, I'm going to look at, and certain things are just standard that you got to do that a good financial advisor will do. And that is, they're going to look at everything. Okay. Now, do all of them do that? No. But a good financial advisor is going to look, and Hall Wealth Management is going to look at everything associated with you, not just the investment side. The investment side is important. You want to get decent returns, but it is keeping more of what you have. And that means minimizing taxes along the way, pre-retirement and in retirement, and minimizing taxes that a business is paying, pre-retirement, and when you exit that business and sell that business, how do you keep most of the dollars that you got for selling that business versus paying a huge amount in taxes at the sale of that business? I've had a number of small business owners come to me when when they're in the process of selling. Can't do as much then because he hadn't planned for it in advance. And you hadn't put the right programs in place to do that. So as far as what we do is we really work through the years in making sure that, number one, we're minimizing taxes along the way, and we're minimizing taxes in retirement. You got to keep more of what you get. And that's more, quite frankly, that's more important than what you earn on your returns. Yes, we want good returns, but keeping more when people are paying 30 and 40% of what they get in taxes from the sale of a business, then you got to have humongous earnings to make up for that kind of decline in the dollars that you have.
Love that. And Andrei, any transformation stories from your clients that you would love to share with my audience?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't call it transformational, but this had happened only a couple of years ago. An attorney, really a young guy, an attorney that I had partnered with as far he was an estate planning attorney, and he was 46 years old, and he did the marathons and the Ironman things and all of that stuff. I don't do that stuff. And doing all those things, had a massive heart attack at 46.
Oh, no.
And left a family of a couple of young daughters and his wife. And it was amazing to me that he was an estate planning attorney, although he had left that side of the business and went to another side of law. But I won't go through that. But he didn't have the things in place that you would have thought he would have in place. Having been an estate planning attorney and understanding all the bad things that will happen if you don't have everything in place. It's that old thing, and when you talk about transformational stories, it's that old thing about the shoemaker whose kids have no shoes.
Yeah.
It's amazing that we know what we need to do, but because we're so busy and wrapped up in the day-to-day things, we put it off, we put it off, we put it off. I had another situation here, just very quickly. A couple who had 3 kids and one child, and this is older now, she's in her 60s, was disabled, learning disabled. And the father and mother passed away within a year of each other a year ago.
Wow.
And they had nothing in place for this child. And when they passed away, they were estranged from their other 2 kids. Within 5 days of those parents passing away, they called the police to have her put out the house. They didn't care where she went. This is someone that would have been just on the street with their clothes on. Fortunately, my wife stepped in because she knew the parents all her life. And when she didn't really know what was going on as a baby to obviously later on, and became her conservator and stopped that from happening. Just went and talked to the police, and they didn't put her out, and went to court, became her conservator. And really, it's things like that that are happening every day.
Yeah.
And when you think about siblings that would do that to a disabled sibling, it's mind-boggling. But
Mm-hmm.
it happens all the time.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. I mean, that sibling, that disabled sibling, never did anything to them because they couldn't. But
Right.
they are so angry with the parents, they would go to those extremes. So I say that to say that when you talk about transformational things, I think about the attorney, I think about this family
Mm-hmm.
situation, and things again are happening like that every day. Business owners with businesses dying and not having the right processes in place. Same thing happened with his business.
Mm-hmm.
The type of law he was practicing and the business with him there because he was that attorney that did the things that needed to be done that an attorney has to do
Mm-hmm.
was worth triple what it ended up being worth because there was no plans in place to put something in place to take over those functions and
Mm-hmm.
trying to find another attorney to take over those functions. I'm trying to say that if you didn't plan for it, things don't go the way they need to go, and that
Right.
business was worth a whole lot less. And I would have to take too much time to explain what all of that meant. That's why I was hesitating.
Yeah, yeah. And it's also like I feel like we don't think long term, and it's like you said, as business owners, we're just so busy, but I'm really glad that you it's so unfortunate those stories. However, I'm so glad that you shared that because it hits home for a lot of us like wow, like this could happen and a lot of my audience members are around that age. So this could happen to anyone and as you said, it's happening every day. So taking the time, taking care of business means taking care of this.
I like because I have also have another son who's disabled. I like to
Mm-hmm.
just put this into anyone who's listening.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a disabled child, make sure you have a special needs trust in place. Do not leave this world without a special needs trust in place for that disabled child, else they will be lost in the system and they will not have a good life, whatever's left.
Mm-hmm.
And so make sure you have a special needs trust. I don't do that, but make sure you have a special needs trust in place. But
Thank
I
you for
work with
sharing
a
that.
lot of folks that need to help in planning for that. But you
Mm-hmm.
got to go to an attorney, obviously, to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. Andre, this has been so amazing. And I definitely want to ask you, as a leader in your business, like how do you stay organized? How do you make sure that, business is running smoothly and that your processes are in place? So any tools or, processes that help you do what you do successfully.
Well, like anyone, none of us run as smoothly as we would like to run.
Right.
Okay, I don't either.
Always something.
And we know that from this morning.
Yeah.
So none of us run as smoothly as we like to run, but I do know my limitations. I do know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And
Yeah.
I try to surround myself with the things I'm not good at. Like I'm not the greatest when it comes to, I'm okay, but not the greatest when it comes to technology. So I make
Yes.
sure I got someone around me that understands technology.
Yes.
I have people that keep me on track from a calendar standpoint, people that
Mm-hmm.
keep me on track from the things that we have planned. We plan out our marketing and our business strategies for 12 months. And I have someone that's constantly saying, okay, you said you were going to do this in week 2 of February and week 3 of
Mm-hmm.
February is going to be this and so on and so on. You're off track. And to help me get back on track because you don't get yourself back on track normally by yourself. If you're a solo person, you have to, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
So and when you say, what are the things I do? I make sure I have people around me that complement my, for lack of a better term, shortcomings.
And that is amazing. It's always good to have a solid team around you. And you definitely do. I've experienced that just interacting with you and your team. So this has been so great. And what advice would you give to someone? Because in their first year of business.
In their first year of business, go into the business, really think through what is going to differentiate your business from somebody else's. Number one. Number two, go in there with the right business strategy and the right marketing plan, and make sure you have enough money so that you can do the things that you want to do from the marketing programs that you need to put in place, and be able to pay the one or two people that you may want to hire to help you with the business.
Good advice. And finally, what does it mean to you to be Black in business?
What it means to me is that I've helped a lot of people, not just clients that happen to be Black, but a lot of organizations. I speak to a lot of organizations. I also help with a lot of Black charities. I help with not just, and I don't mean just giving to those Black charities, but how do they raise money? I give them strategies that they can utilize that can help them raise more money. And so that's what it means that I've been able to do things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I had stayed in the corporate world, quite frankly.
Love that. Andrei, this has been amazing, and you've given us so much, and also the real on what we should be doing for planning long term. People who are listening are going to want to know, how can they support you, how can they find you, and how can they work with you? So please share, how can they do that?
Well, there's several ways. Through LinkedIn, there's you would just go to LinkedIn and Andrei Hall, A-N-D as in Deborah, R-E-I. There's an I at the end of my name. And last name is Hall, H-A-L-L. YouTube at Hall Wealth. Again, Hall, YouTube at Hall Wealth, H-A-L-L, Wealth. And then Facebook.com / Hall Wealth. And my website is HWMG, Hall Wealth Management Group, -LPL.com. And my email is Andrei, again, ANDREI.Hall @LPL, and my phone number is 949-222-6401. And if you're in the Orange County, Los Angeles area, give me a holler and we can have a cup of coffee.
Love it. Thank you again, Andrei, so much for being on the Black to Business podcast and all the amazing work that you do. Thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Another great conversation, and I'm sure it has your wheels spinning. As Andrei said, time flies, so the exit plan has to start sooner rather than later, regardless if you're riding solo or not. Take the time at the end of the year to plan for the next year. You want to set your objectives and start to set the value and the price so that you can get the maximum price for the business. Such good advice. Check out how you can connect with Andrei by visiting blacktobusiness.com/135. Can't wait to see you back here next week, where we'll be sharing how to find your spark and unleash your brilliance. Later.